Well, hello. That's me again. It's August 1st, and I will start talking today about funny thing. We'll start with a couple of purely economic notes, if you wish, of interest, which really will bring us to the fundamental issue of the event of the, or events, if you wish, of the Russia's Navy Day, which was always the last weekend, last Sunday of the month. And we will start with this. It's really, I cannot even emphasize enough how important it is, but when you have people from even Yahoo Finance suddenly recognizing that, well, the economy is in deep shit, actually. We know this. Anybody who doesn't, who has eyes and ears, they understand that, and those who work for a living. But look at this. Yahoo suddenly, on Saturday, publishes this piece about how our GDP complex prevents us from asking happiness or growth, morning brief. And look what they write about. They actually write about the point I write about for many years. There is an entire apparatus, economists, bankers, government officials, and prognosticators of folks whose livelihoods are predicated on measuring GDP, maintained as the be-all and end-all method for measuring a country's economic or even societal health. And here I want to reiterate what I am on the record for many years, actually for decades now, is that GDP measure and the way it is produced and counted in Western world, especially by American economists, is nothing more than economic fraud. And I agree with the article, actually. You have people, most of whom never worked a day in normal work. They never run anything. They never run manufacturing business. They never ran essential service business. Those people with those absolutely worthless and absolutely fraudulent degrees in economics, in PR, in sociology, things of this nature, which are taught in America's universities. And believe me, this scourge also touched many in Russia, for example. And who created this idea that you can measure things in money only? And this was created for single purpose, to present the United States and parade it around the world as the greatest economy in the world, despite the fact that it's not the largest economy in the world anymore, and by far, because obviously purely monetary expression of the complexity of economy doesn't work. It doesn't work also for the size. And you know, you can look up my previous videos where I literally, jump over myself, trying to explain to you that you cannot have the greatest economy and the largest economy in the world when you produce steel, which is equal to the production of Russia and 12 times smaller than that of China. There you go. It's a crucial resource, but you can go on and on and on, see the energy production and things of this nature, and suddenly you recognize that the United States maybe at best, in the best case scenario, is the second world economy, but on many parameters, the United States is not even the third or the fourth. It lags behind many crucial things which count things which you produce and use in your economy, ranging from what have you, from machine tools to CNC to whatever. United States obviously is the world leader, at least it used to be, let's say commercial aerospace, undeniably, yeah. Here the United States still retains strong positions. It is definitely the leader on some other things. Yeah, United States definitely has some degree of the energy independence, if you wish, if you count Canada, obviously, together with the United States. Yeah, energetically, so to speak, North America is fairly self-sufficient, self-sustained, can sustain itself. But other things, China produces 3.5 times more automobiles, cars than the United States. American commercial shipbuilding industry doesn't even register against the giants of same China, South Korea. Russia beats the United States in terms of the tonnage of producing commercial shipbuilding. We're not talking about military one, but then again, you know, if you look at the military one, what are you gonna do? There are you know, the latest Gerald Ford aircraft carrier of 100,000 tons of displacement is still not fully operational. And we can go on and on and on. And that's when the kind of meeting with the reality, the disruption, you know, of the delusions and the severe cognitive dissonance begins to creep in. And then suddenly you have even such people as the JP Morgan saying that Russia had little problems rerouting its oil exports, meaning the expected plunge in the production never happened. And they say basically this, you know, a few days ago, and it's all about the fact that no matter what the United States does, and it thought that it was so powerful economically that it can control the world, then it cannot affect Russia's energy sector. Not only Russia produces most of its equipment now, and you know, you remember probably 5 years ago all those screams, oh yeah, Russia's energy sector will collapse because we're not going to sell technology to it. Well, Russia developed and has own technologies for liquefying natural gas, for pumping equipment, including shale technologies. Russia does do the shale development, so it's a shale oil development. So, and that's what happens, that even JP Morgan cannot deny this fact that, yeah, sure, sanction whatever you want. I mean, but Russia is building those massive pipes and pipelines, and China is grabbing this, collecting this energy from oil to gas to what have you like crazy. They need it, and so does Asia. And that's where it brings us to this fundamental issue, which obviously the US media and Western media had a hissing fit yesterday during the celebration by Russia of Russian Navy Day, because Vladimir Putin signed this document. This document is called Maritime Doctrine of Russian Federation. It was signed yesterday, as you can see yourself, by the order of number 5112 of the President of Russian Federation. And it's Maritime Doctrine of Russian Federation. It is a 56 pages document, which is really specific and really, how to put it even, I would say clear for the most part, in describing what Russia sees in the world ocean and what she wants to achieve. Listen attentively to I will translate to you what is stated in the general description of the document. Point number 1. The present doctrine is the document of the strategic planning. So why I am so enjoying the fact that it is the document of the strategic planning. You have to understand that any doctrine, and actually this is given the definition, this is the definition of this doctrine too, is the fact that doctrine is the system of the views of the state, or for that matter some entity on their, in this particular case, on their maritime affairs, and how to build and use its maritime assets, including naval assets. And this doctrine, and this is why there is a hissing fit in the US media especially. There are issues with those clowns in Europe who also hissing, so to speak, is the fact that United States, for the first time in this doctrine, which is the fundamental strategic planning document, is announced as the enemy of Russia and is the main threat to the world peace. Well, actually, it's nothing new. It's obvious that it's the case for many years now. United States, its government, not necessarily people, at least majority of Americans either don't care or just decent enough people not to wishing this. But obviously, United States government, it wished the annihilation of Russia, and if possible, annihilation of Russian people. So, and in this case, Russia simply recognized it and actually addressed the issue of the only service, the only branch in the United States, which even today, unlike it is armed forces in general, and unlike it is the, let's say, America's ground forces, less so U.S. Marine Corps or Air Force, but it's the only combat-ready force. And it's the main instrument of the United States policy around the world. And it is by the means of, obviously, naval force, which is the part of the, world ocean. This is how the United States conducts its foreign policy, primarily, and the foundation of this policy, of course, is the aircraft carrier task group, which, by the way, is sailing now around Taiwan. We don't know if Pelosi is going to land there or not, but we'll see about that. But why it is important? Why so much hissing and that, oh my God, that the Russians finally, just announced that the United States is somehow, is the enemy of Russia, and Russia views the United States as the enemy. As I already stated, enough to take a look at the special military operation in Ukraine to understand this. And now we have the situation which requires a little bit of deeper elaboration. Here it is. This is my article from 2013, actually. It was published in the Proceedings magazine, U.S. Naval Institute Proceedings magazine, in 2014, because for almost a year it lay there being accepted for the publication, but because the schedule of publishing of this definitely esteemed a very interesting magazine and very influential magazine was such that they were able only to get it into the special issue, which was dedicated primarily to Russian Navy. And again, it was actually 8 years ago. And I wrote a fairly broad article called Russia's Navy in Search of a Mission, where I asked, basically begged, for Russia to finally figure out what is going on in terms of the doctrine, and that at this time you have to, basically define your priorities and obviously stop playing those games with all those aircraft carriers or what have you. And I wrote that at this stage, considering Russia's, and it was before Crimea and before United States unleashed coup d'etat in Kiev, and it was written with the understanding that, yeah, we can kind of coexist for a while, the world community, and that Russian Navy will need to concentrate primarily on their sea denial function. That means not allowing any kind of navy, including U.S. Navy, to basically attack Russia from the maritime direction, so to speak, from the ocean directions. And that at that time, considering Russia's economic state, was required to concentrate primarily on this mission, especially based on the newest coming weapon systems and platforms, such as the brand new frigates of Russian Navy, and of course brand new nuclear-powered and diesel-powered submarines. But when you read the last few paragraphs of my article, I stated that has to go until 2020 to preserve Russian Navy as the combat force. But then, and I stressed it, based on the economic development, and I expected Russia to continue to economically develop and restructure, maybe Russia has to start thinking about the full-blown blue water navy, which might become global force. Well, Guess what? If you read this article, you will see it there. And I stayed on my point for many years now. And guess what? Well, I was a little bit kind of late on, well, early actually. When I started 2020, but again, I hoped at that time that maybe there's some kind of modus vivendi is available, will be possible between Russia, China, and the United States. Last 9 years proved me wrong in this respect. Well, I already knew that I was wrong in 2014 after coup d'etat in Kiev. That's when I wrote that United States sustained catastrophic defeat. They just don't know this. Well, and that's, now we have Russia of 2022. And of course, when you, one of the reasons why those people in 2014 decided to commit the basically geopolitical crime of the century by unleashing the entire Russian regime in Kiev, and then, basically provoking Russia to invade Ukraine in 2022 was precisely because this is this GDP complex, gross domestic product complex, which they don't understand real economy, they don't understand the real war. In fact, they don't know how to fight real war. And it's patently clear today, especially when you read a lot of those and watch and listen to those TV generals. They have no clue, honestly. You look at this and it's like, oh my God, no wonder those people lose every single war they fight. And the question is that Russian economy is absolutely not what anybody thinks from this GDP complex. It's massive. And as we already saw, not only in terms of energy, but in the fact of the desperation, which begins to show quite well throughout even the most idiotic, tabloids like Wall Street Journal or The Economist, those neoliberal morons who have no clue what they're writing about in terms of economics. They can see now that, just sanction Russia, whatever you want. Of course, Russians will have some minor difficulties which they overcome usually, and they do overcome them, including, for example, in radio electronics and microchip production, but that's the separate topic. And then suddenly, when you recognize, oh my God, this is economy which is very different, it begins to remind me this good old anecdote. It uses Russian names, but it doesn't matter, let's say, and the anecdote is goes exactly like this. John and Bill go to hunt the bear. So they separate at some point of time a little bit, and then John screams to Bill, "Hey Bill, I caught the bear." And he says, "Well, then bring him here." And he says, "I cannot, he doesn't let me." Well, that's exactly what happened with this situation in terms of economic and military potential. The miscalculation wasn't just bad. It wasn't like several-fold. It was on the order of magnitude in how these people, especially in those neocon circles in Washington, D.C., people who actually doesn't have any viable skills in anything, how they miscalculated because they thought that we're gonna catch the bear. Well, guess what? The bear caught them. And now they have to face the music of the fact that not only Russia economically dramatically larger than they ever thought, because of course they are representative also of this neoliberal economics, which is the fraudulent science, but militarily they now have to face the situation that, suddenly Russia stated that, okay, we are building now the Blue Water Navy. And what Blue Water Navy is? Well, you have to understand that Blue Water Navy is the navy which can operate in the world ocean. And you have to understand clearly when you speak about Blue Water Navy that, Russia already operates. It actually never stopped for the short period of about 5-6 years in 1990s when there was a catastrophe. Russia never stopped operating in the world ocean, especially through its submarine forces. But American naval science, and it's a very respectable science, believe me, because obviously, unlike it is with the ground forces, U.S. Navy has a magnificent history behind it, and especially in the 20th century, and it's a really glorious and heroic history, and there was a lot of, and actually in some sense that's what drove United States Navy to become the hostage of its own success in war with Japan in the Pacific theater, and that is why it became so rigid strategically and doctrinally, if you wish. But Russia was in world ocean pretty much non-stop, with the exception of this short period of time. But obviously the main thing for the United States, as they define the Blue Water Navy, is not just have to go into the ocean. You have to be able to project power over it. So, and of course, not only the United States was called Russia's main enemy, and the new doctrine was signed. Now they have this, oh my God, hissing fit also, because there's a very specifically stated in this doctrine that Russia is going to build aircraft carriers. My gosh. So, my position on the aircraft carriers is very simple. I never was against them. I was against them when there was no economic capabilities to support that in Russia, and that was obviously early 2000s and early 2010s. Things changed, and I also wrote about it in also when I was describing in my first book, and the first book, which has a very specific name to it, or a title, and you probably know this book. It's called Losing Military Supremacy, and read attentively what is the subtitle of it. It's The Myopia of American Strategic Planning. Unlike Russian doctrines, which are actually strategic documents on planning, Americans produce a lot of doctrines too. The problem, of course, as Sergei Gorshkov, the former commander of the Soviet Navy, and a very respected man, he once stated, the problem with the United States, with the Americans, is that they write a lot of doctrines, but they don't follow them. And that's pretty much, he nailed the, basically it. And obviously, the United States Navy is the carrier-centric Navy. I am not against aircraft carriers. I am against carrier-centric navies. And Russia is not going to become carrier-centric Navy. But Russia will have aircraft carriers. We'll talk about the technological part of it later on. But if you look at this is a very important set of the photos. And this is this gigantic complex of Zvezda Shipyard in the Far East, which is still under construction, but it's already manufacturing many ships. Actually, it already developed 3 more than 100,000 tons displacement carriers, oil carriers, Aframax class. And you can see one of them at the floating dock, and it has a gigantic slipway where you can build several ships of massive displacement. And of course, now, if you look also, and this is also recent, actually it's fully completed now, it is the gigantic dry dock on Zvezda. The whole Zvezda thing is just the huge city onto its own. And it's more than around one half kilometer long and almost 200 meters wide dock, which also can fit several very large vessels while constructing them. And obviously this is the shipyard where Russian aircraft carriers will be. But immediately I want to say to those excited, fanboys who love the, circle jerk, participate in circle jerk onto all those shiny toys and, so to speak, technology in all kinds of the fanboys forums. We don't know what kind of carriers Russia will be building. And let me give you some hints, so to speak, very interesting type of news, which have been kind of overshadowed or overlooked by many in the West, but these are very important nonetheless. And when one considers the technological development of Russia today and her economic size, I think that will be the track Russia will be taking. And I'm not talking about classic cattle bar CVN mastodons of 100,000 displacement. You don't want to build that. They are extremely expensive, extremely unreliable, and they are huge fat targets for modern anti-shipping missiles, especially such as zircons. And here it is. In exactly 4 years ago, Yuri Borisov, who was at that time Deputy Prime Minister in charge of the industry and military-industrial complex, dropped the bomb, actually. And this bomb wasn't really noted by many, but look at this. Russia developing vertical takeoff plane on Putin's instruction. Now work is underway to develop conceptual models and prototypes according to Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov. What you see in the photo here is actually good old Yakovlev 141 short take-off vertical landing aircraft, which is known as Freestyle, which never went into serial production despite 11 copies being made, and eventually, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, United States capitalized on some technical solutions there, including the nozzles and moving nozzles, which were incorporated also into the F-35. It's a well-known fact. They paid only $500,000 for the documentation of this plane to Yakovlev Design Bureau. Yeah, it was 1992. That's how desperate it was. But it was clear that it was an outstanding machine because it was fully supersonic, Mach 1.5, and it was very advanced for its time in terms of avionics and ability to carry some serious missiles. And when you look at this, you have to also read the news further, and you can easily find them, that actually Borisov specifically stated, no, it's going to be not Yakovlev 141 based aircraft, albeit, of course, many solutions might be used still. But it will be completely new aircraft. And no, it is not S-75, Sukhoi S-75, which is coming out in serial production very soon, albeit some say that it will have Stovall version. So I think so that Russian aircraft carriers will be, those Stovall versions. They will start with the Stovall versions of the aircraft, which will be able to carry all present nomenclature, variety of Russian standoff and air-to-air, air-to-surface weapons. And of course, the speculations about this future aircraft carrier continue today all the time, including some bizarre things which, for example, Nevsky Design Bureau produced here, which is, of course, they call this universal Varan style. I don't know why they called it, but again, it's Varan. It's 45,000, 50,000 times aircraft carrier, tons displacement aircraft carrier, which is capable of carrying something like on the order of 30 some plus aircraft. And if you go with the Stovall, initial Stovall development, probably that's what is going to be done. But there is another type of the news which should have been really paid attention to, and it was the fact that now, which are under construction, two major Russian what is called LHEs, Universal Amphibious ships, which are being built right now at the Kerch Shipyard Zaliv in Crimea. They, 2 years ago, it was announced that actually from this standard 25,000 full 25,000 ton displacement, they have been, these displacements have been increased by more than way over than 30,000 tons, metric tons, which tells you also that probably those guys will be more than just universal amphibious landing assault ships or what have you, similar to something like USS America, LHD, which is a beautiful ship actually. But they will be something like more closer to the 40,000 tons of displacement, and that means not only the substantial size of the formation of Marines they can take there, naval infantry, about 1,000 people, and 26 helicopters of different types, and including, obviously, obviously UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. But something tells me that those STOL aircraft will also be placed there. And that will be more along the lines of the, as I already stated, LHD of America class, or something like Conte di Cavour, which carries, depending on the of the Italian Navy, depending on the whatever configuration they have, it's something between 6 to 12, I believe, STOL aircraft, F-35Bs, evidently. So, but we'll see about this. But yeah, look now for the S-75 development, or don't be surprised if something completely new and STOL pops up out of nowhere, and Russians will present you with this like, here's our carrier-borne aviation now, and that's what it's going to be. But if you look at the most of the carrier designs, so to speak, which Russians produce nowadays, and there are all kinds of them, and I'm not talking about speculation by all those fanboys forums, you will notice that Russians do not want catapults, and I think so it's absolutely correct decision. Depending on, obviously, on the main task of the carrier task groups Russia envisions. And you have to remember always that considering the newest ranges and velocities of Russian weapon systems and capabilities of, let's say, helicopters and aircraft which will be based on those aircraft carriers, we're looking actually at still returning back to classic Soviet concept of the sea denial, but sea denial by the means of sea control, when the aircraft carrier becomes the core of not only your task group, but actually it acts defending you, even when you have the surface ships, such as, for example, improved Gorshkov class Zircon and Caliber carriers, frigates. They're not really frigates, they're basically getting there to the destroyer size with the displacement of 8,000 tons. And aviation also defends your group, while you will be able to strike with your strike weapons, such as Zircon, which already we know has a range of 1,500 kilometers. And evidently even longer range hypersonic weapons are coming very soon. So in this particular case, you will have the aviation, obviously, for the far projection, especially as I already stated many times, that Russia will need 2 to 3 carriers, which I call the firefighter carriers, for the situation of the North Africa in Mediterranean and the stabilization of the African subcontinent, which will be needed to help the governments loyal to Russia and willing to work with Russia in case, as you might expect, and you can see it now in Kosovo, some next US Secretary of the State will go somewhere and start another fire for another war. That's why you will need those carriers. But this is just general, so to speak, description of this all. And of course, now that we have this naval doctrine in place, it will be very interesting to read those 55 pages slowly and taking into account the circumstances. But as you know, you can correctly assume now that Russia kind of dropped the gauntlet, you know, and yeah, U.S. Navy will have to face already upcoming. It's upcoming. You can see it. You can see the contours of this Russian Navy coming up. But what it's going to be in 5 to 7 years, most likely it will be full-blown blue water Navy with absolutely outstanding strike capabilities, which will continue to be unmatched. And this is what has been written in this doctrine, and this is all about finishing off combined West as it exists today, and probably allow the, well, not probably, actually, fully allow the new, brave new world to take hold around the world, which will be more just, less violent. And that's the ideas which are encapsulated in this naval doctrine. But we will be talking more, much more about it. This is what I just wanted to tell you today. And this is kind of, you know, to give you some first impressions. And of course, yes, we're going to be talking about the technology. I will be showing you all kinds of those, you know, developments in the aircraft area technology, especially on the Russian side. But this is what I wanted to tell you today. And as always, my dear friends, I have to express my profound gratitude for my wonderful patrons. It is because of you that I am able to make these videos. And if you like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And if you can afford, please support me on Patreon. I would really appreciate this. And this is your primer, so to speak, for this week. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.